We are sharing with you the Athos Diet. I am calling in from central Pennsylvania, the state capital near Harrisburg, and we wanted to walk through the highlights of this diet tonight with you to share the good news of what I think is a great lifestyle approach for at least 48 days of the year, and to give you a little context and try to get you really excited about how we might use this to improve our health and move forward. So with that said, I'm gonna blast off with the agenda, with my goal being that we can introduce the authors a little bit with my sidekick here, MB Gayle. We're going to talk a little bit about how and why we wrote the book, the three pillars of the book, and maybe even have a little bit of a reading and wrap up here in the next 30 minutes or so, and just make good use of your time, give you high yield points, and make the best of the evening. All in favor say yay, all in opposition say nay, but we'll keep you on mute just in case. No, it's okay. We're moving forward here, so it's great. Feel free to ask questions at any time. So for those that don't know me or might be getting up to speed with some of the things that I do, I'm Dr. Pete Patitsis, and it's a Greek last name, and because it's a little difficult to say sometimes, I just tell my patients, hey, just call me Dr. Pete. I work in the emergency room. I guess you could call me one of the frontline workers taking care of COVID patients all this past, it's pretty much been a year now, hasn't it been? It's been quite a year. I finished my emergency medicine training over the summer last year, and once that training was over and I felt like I was less of a slave, I actually had some time to finally make good on a paper I wrote in medical school about intermittent fasting. And what's unique about this background is that I'm Greek Orthodox. Since the age of 7, we've been doing a lot of fasting as kids. On the call here, we have Pam and James, who are basically like second parents to me. And I was always very happy to have an extra set of vegetable sandwiches on Wednesdays and Fridays packed in my friend Ryder's lunchbox to help us get through some hungry days. But when I hit my 4th year of medical school, I felt like I finally had enough context about disease, about the people I was taking care of, to understand that obesity and the associated diseases with it are really changing our culture and our landscape and the people that I love the most. And so I wanted to figure out if there was some value in this tradition that I had practiced most of my life. And the funny thing about it, and MB and I will resonate on this, is that, when you're a kid fasting, as long as you're doing the vegan thing, you think you're doing the right thing. And so you pack in as much refined sugar and candy and white bread as you can. And that seems to be playing by the rules. But I think what happened was shortchanging the diet and the fasting approach. And so when I went through medical school, I realized that there was a way to optimize that time. And so I wrote a paper on that under the tutelage of Dr. Lazarova, who's acknowledged in the book. That paper then went underneath a desk for 3 years of residency, which felt like forever. And then with this COVID-19 pandemic, it was time to make good on that promise. And MB Gayle came into the spotlight, and I'll let her introduce herself from here.
Hey, so I'm Mary Beth, you can call me MB, and I was scrolling through social media like I don't like to admit that I do so much as I do, and I happened to come across this post that Dr. Pete, who I knew from St. Xenia Church Camp, had written this piece on intermittent fasting, which is something that I found really valuable in my life. And he was looking for somebody to kind of work on it with him. And I have a master's degree in obesity and weight management. And I'm very interested in writing on the subject. And so we talked about this, and he had this great paper on intermittent fasting that was really well researched. And we were thinking, okay, well, there are a lot of things written about intermittent fasting, but what hasn't really been addressed? And that thing, I guess, was sort of right in our upbringing. We thought we could be the people who sort of take the idea of fasting from meat and dairy. For us, being raised as Orthodox Christians, we did that growing up, and we could kind of fuse that with this intermittent fasting that we really use a whole lot in our lives today. So that is kind of how we got into writing this book. All right.
Yeah, and I have to say, MB has brought a very good perspective to developing this concept further. I'm really grateful for her work on it. We met every week for a number of months. I mean, when did we start? October or so, maybe?
I was looking at it. It seems like 6 months, but it was 3.
Okay. It was 3 intense months, and in that period of time, we were able to meet regularly, come up with assignments, explore this topic even deeper than what I had initially, and really feel confident about a set of recommendations that I think any physician can really appreciate and recommend to their patients, that people can adopt to their own lifestyle, and I think has some really cool life hacks. It's a really popular term right now. Everyone wants to life hack everything, but this particular diet is a life hack, I think, for kind of like an energy crisis that we all, many times I think, struggle with in our society. I think a lot of it has to do with the food we eat, when we eat, and the different sort of cultural norms that we have that sometimes really aren't prepared for a 21st century society that has access to anything we want 24 hours a day. So with that said, I want to stress sort of the introduction of this book with my own personal story. I remember there was this one day I was coming into work and I was so tired. I was a medical student actually, and I was just extremely exhausted. And I had made jokes all day about me being so tired and can't wait for lunch, and then lunch hit and I was still tired after that. Couldn't wait till the day was over. And I kind of went through this routine for several days. I remember meeting a medical student who really just seemed to be like on top of the world and what was going on. And he leaned over to me, Pete. He leaned over to me and he said, "Hey, Pete, you got to find out about Adderall." And I have to say, I didn't take that route, but he could have been like the poster boy for that drug. And by God, I mean, he was doing great, but I don't know if I was just kind of scared of something I never tried before, and there really wasn't any medical indication for me to try that. I just felt, is there any other way? Is there any other answer? And so what happened basically was that this one Lent, which lasts 48 days, and is happening very soon here for Orthodox Christians around the world. There's I guess 200 million of us. Next week we will start a 48-day fast where we effectively become vegans. And I have to tell you, at that time, I was really bad faster in the sense that I followed the rules, but I ate all the wrong stuff. And I said to myself, you know what? Food is so tasteless and so boring anyway during Lent. Why don't I just do this thing called intermittent fasting and see what happens? And the only reason I came across that term was because when I was a child, I went to Mount Athos in Greece, and there's a peninsula there of many different monastic communities. These are monks who have decided to pursue, a more natural form of life, and they spend a lot of the day praying, and they make their own food, and they fast. They do a lot of fasting. And I remember when I was there finding out about this tradition where they don't eat until the 9th hour. And what's the significance of that? Basically, biblical tradition, Christ is crucified and he dies at the 9th hour. And I think it's safe to assume that he didn't eat that day. And so what the monks do is they fast with him. They don't eat anything until the 9th hour. And this is a tradition they've been, practicing for at least 1,000 years, maybe 1,200 years. And it's interesting because in addition to these same people being vegans, they intermittent fast, and they have lower levels of cholesterol, lower levels of cancer, of prostate cancer, of colon cancer. They live longer, and not just longer than the average American, but even longer than Greeks who are practicing fasting in sort of the more vegan way, but not the intermittent fasting part. And so what I started to realize is that maybe what they were doing there was kind of par excellence of what I was brought up to potentially do. And so with that said, I practiced the intermittent fasting in the Orthodox way for 48 days. And I lost 35 pounds. I lost 35 pounds in that period of time, which was a really significant amount of weight for me. And it wasn't like a grueling process. I didn't run marathons. I didn't, I wasn't starving. I still had energy. I felt cleaner, lighter. And so I realized at the end of this process, because I had already written a manuscript, that there was something really about this diet that I wasn't just familiar with, but an entire population of Greeks in this peninsula had been practicing for 1,200 years. It was just time for it to meet the rest of the world, best kept secret. So effectively, I lost a lot of weight, my energy was high, and I realized that it was time to move this forward with a scientific lens to understand the physiology and to prove to myself through 21st century lens that this worked, and it might benefit patients, and it might benefit the people that I loved and cared about. So that's how the diet came to be. And so welcome to the Athos Diet. Our tagline is, before there was Atkins, there was Athos, like way before Atkins, like 1,000 years before Atkins. But in any case, I feel like it's a good time for us to read an excerpt or two from the book. Just because I've been taking the microphone here, I'm going to let MB kind of share her personal story, which is a very inspiring one, about her walk with this undertaking.
So yeah, I'd love to read a little bit about, I guess, what got me into this line of research. Also, hi, Uncle Dave. Hi, Glenn. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Glenn.
All right.
Hi, Mrs. Gayle. Hi, MB.
Hey. All right. Okay. So as well as research, we did share some personal things in this book. So I'd love to tell you a little bit. Right. This is some of Skinny Pills, a short memoir. For the sake of background, I can tell you I was always the fat kid. I grew up in the low-fat era of the 90s, overdosing on carbohydrates and feeling tired and hungry. Given my family's tradition of Orthodox Christian fasting, as well as basic adherence to the food guide pyramid, we kept the cereal and soy milk companies in business. For anybody who wasn't in a middle school health class between the years of 1992 and 2011, the food guide pyramid is a triangular graphic touted by the USDA that instructed people to eat mostly bread, cereal, rice, and pasta, which were all found comprising the base of the proposed diet. You could follow the cartoon food illustrations up to the top of the guide pyramid, where you would find that fatty foods, oils, candies, and salt were to be used sparingly, as if they were all the same thing. The olive oil and the sugary soda banished together at the top of the seemingly innocuous nutritional organizer. Growing up, I went through practically every phase and fad you can think of in order to lose weight. I became an expert in food tracking, and I could tell you how much natural sugar you would find in an onion slice. I got so into dance fitness classes that I started teaching them. I began to spend hours in the gym, lifting in the mornings early before work. So much of my life revolved around calorie counts and my very time-intensive cardio, dance, lifting, yoga schedule. I found myself, at age 28, my weight having crept back up to almost its highest point despite teaching cardio dance, doing CrossFit 4 times a week, obsessively tracking my food, and adjusting my precise macronutrient ratios. My knees hurt, and I was uncomfortably cold, achy, and hungry almost all the time. But what would frustrate me the most was when the New Year's resolutioners would walking lunge their way into the gym in January and approach me saying, "Oh, hey there, you must be new. Good for you, coming into the gym and trying so hard." No, I'm not new. You're new. I've been working out here for years, and I teach a class in the studio upstairs on Wednesday nights. You should come. Oh, okay. They would fiddle around on an elliptical a couple times, and then I'd never see them again. So there must have been something wrong with me, right? I decided in 2016 to go see a doctor who specialized in obesity and weight loss. I fully expected to get some answers from the hormone test that she ordered. Maybe I had a thyroid issue. That would have explained a lot of my struggle. While I should have just been thankful to see all of my blood work come back normal, I was dumbfounded. I had good HDL levels and normal LDL levels. My TSH, among other tests, was in the normal healthy range. After I explained my health history to my doctor, she prescribed a 1,500 calorie diet that was 40% protein, 30% fat, and 30% carbs. I strictly followed it, measuring everything. Whole eggs didn't have a high enough protein to fat ratio for this diet, so I faithfully strained out the yolks and ate just the rubbery egg whites, still feeling cold, hungry, and mentally unfocused. After looking over my food and exercise logs and confirming my non-weight loss, my doctor strongly recommended weight loss medication. I loved the way that phentermine made me feel. I had so much extra energy at first that I cleaned my entire house immediately, Marie Kondoed everything I owned, and still felt like running and lifting. For the first time in my life, I truly felt full after eating. Despite not wanting to eat as much, I stayed consistent with my prescribed 1,500 calories per day, made of the correct macronutrient ratios. Generally warm and happy, I lost 10 pounds in about 2 months and then plateaued again. I was slightly more anxious at rest, but I didn't mind. I thought I would lose more weight, but when I didn't, my doctor said I should definitely add a drug called topiramate, which is prescribed to treat seizures and migraines, but often makes people experience dramatic weight loss. What do you have going on this week? My doctor asked. It was August, and I explained to her that I had a slew of very boring meetings and teacher trainings that are surely designed to make teachers look forward to the return of the students. Those August days traditionally included painful stacks of useless flowcharts, presentations from nervous peer teachers on whatever buzzword strategies were trending, and wall-sized sticky note-driven activities, all punctuated with trite YouTube clips that the administrators thought might be inspirational, but were collectively a mountainous waste of time. Excellent, she said, smiling. Mid-meeting at school on the morning that I started taking this new small white pill, I began to understand what my doctor had meant by excellent. I felt weirdly high as my fingers and toes started to go numb. I couldn't stop zoning out, and I found myself floating in a space where nothing mattered. Though I wasn't hungry, I still ate my 1,500 calories. Some foods, which had always seemed appealing, now seemed revolting. The thought of sugar made me want to vomit. Anything carbonated, I really enjoy an unsweet sparkling water, tasted terrible, and I was sweating more and felt uncomfortably warm at times. I also started dropping weight immediately. I lost about 40 more pounds over 10 months without changing my diet or routine. It was amazing. I had started at 25 milligrams, but my doctor would just increase my dosage when I would plateau, and then I would start losing again. I loved being lighter. I was soon the lowest weight I had been since age 14, but technically in the obese range according to the BMI charts. But I really didn't like some of the other effects of the medication that I was experiencing. I was slower mentally. A few times a day, it would take me an unusual amount of time to think of a very normal word. In school, I would announce to my class, "Go ahead and sit down at your desk." Yes, desk, that. People would congratulate me all the time, and usually I would smile and say, "Thank you," because it was a lot easier and probably more polite than saying, "It's the drugs." Maybe instead of congratulating me for being smaller, you could congratulate me for one of my interesting accomplishments as a public school teacher or writer or theater director, or the fact that I've trained enough to deadlift 265 pounds, or really anything else at all that you might know if you knew anything about me other than the fact that I'm physically made of noticeably less body fat right now than I was a few months ago. People often assume that fat people lack the willpower to control their cravings for fries and donuts, but body weight is just so much more complicated than the eat less, move more chanting crowd makes it seem. Many people, therefore, see obesity as some kind of character flaw, a very visual marker of the failure to be in control, for laziness, for stupidity. If drugs that adjust brain function by increasing or inhibiting various neurotransmitters can have such a dramatic effect on body fat and weight, there had to be more to the obesity epidemic than was normally presented. And I'm going to stop there. That's not the end of the story, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from as a writer and researcher. So thanks for listening.
MB, that was great. And I remember you presenting that section in the book and being very, really resonating with the struggle that you went through and appreciating your transparency about it. I think it speaks to probably the entire weight loss drug industry and the oversimplification of the problem. And so, yes, as they say, stay tuned, buy the book and all those good online if you'd like to see the rest of how that plays out. So, I wanted to read my section from the introduction to the group as we sort of segue into the last 7 minutes or so of us being here together. So with that said, I'm going to sort of read from my own voice the introduction. For a long time, I woke up wishing I could sleep just a bit longer. I was eating meals hoping to snack later on. I suffered from this feeling that my energy was low. I didn't address my low energy problem directly, but instead tried to hush the constant thoughts of sleeping and eating as I reached for caffeinated drinks each morning to give me a boost. I greeted friends and colleagues at work with comments and jokes about how tired I was. Everyone commiserated. While the workday was still young, the feeling of hunger clouded my mind and muddled my concentration, despite my recent breakfast. I wondered why I felt so blah, despite several cups of coffee, and by mid-morning, I was talking about lunch. If I was lucky, I consumed another caffeinated drink. Then what happened? I experienced a post-prandial, after meal, energy crash shortly after lunch, and then I began to count down the hours I must survive until the workday was over. When I finally arrived home, I threw the keys on the couch, followed by my own body. I'm exhausted, but at least I know I can eat, nap, and prepare for a repeat of the same tomorrow. I was spinning my wheels and passing time, and time is our greatest resource. There's something very wrong with this routine. The pattern is not helpful, but paralyzing. It seeks a better future at the expense of never enjoying the present. It is hoping for summer, ignoring winter, and never allowing spring to come. We need to liberate ourselves from a consumption-oriented, low-energy routine that keeps us in an unending cycle of always needing more. More food, another drink, and 5 more minutes of rest. It is time that we end our state of fog, weight gain, and probable depression caused by stumbling through our status quo approach. It is time we remind ourselves of the power of our self-awareness and our intentions. The Athos Diet is the answer. It is the paradigm shift we all need. It is the game changer. It is a diet that works for any person who is limited on time, rather wants to redeem the time, yet demands energy to live intentionally. This diet was inspired by the ancient communities of Mount Athos, and I wrote the first draft of this book in medical school, validating and optimizing the methods through scientific research. I then lived this diet during my 4th year of med school and lost 35 pounds in 48 days. I knew I was onto something. I then applied the Athos Diet in my own life while working as a resident in emergency medicine. My marriage, my 4 children, and the demands of working in the emergency department significantly limited my time and required a great deal of my daily bandwidth. Going to the edge and not looking for an easy fix caused necessity to give rise to invention. With the Athos Diet, I found that somehow I was able to forgo food during most of the day and still have the energy to do it all. I felt lighter, I felt clearer, I felt more empowered. With the lens of modern science and medicine, I personally examined and tested an ancient practice in the modern arena to see what could happen. It worked and it was life-changing. I know that it could work for me, and it could work for my family, and it could work for my friends, and it could work for my patients. The diet is time-tested, science-based, and results-driven. I know this diet will improve your health. Just want to hit this paragraph, last one, because it means a lot to me. This is not a book about the art of achieving vanity. The stakes are much, much higher. This is a book about saving lives through better health. Diabetes, stroke, cancer, and heart attacks are all on the rise across all demographics. Ironically, this trend is happening in the wealthiest country in the world during the most advanced era of human history. This means that our grandma or grandpa, mom or dad, brother or sister may tragically suffer. Tragedy is when we realize we could have done something reasonable to prevent death from striking. This reality is felt in the emergency room every day. I know what it's like to speak to a loved one, begging that they take back control of their health so they could live a little bit longer. As we age, our team becomes a bit smaller with each passing year. We want our friends and family to be healthy so that they are with us on this earth. It is a lonely walk without them. I can put out all sorts of fires in the emergency department with 21st century medicine, but what I've come to realize is that really my family, friends, and patients need something that will keep them from coming to the emergency department in the first place. I'm here to give them that something, the Athos Diet. So guys, thanks so much for hearing us out. I think we have some really exciting things to share with you. We are running out of time, but there's a lot more to speak through, and I just wanted to hit the highlights of this diet to kind of maybe clarify some things that will help you get through these next 48 days. And by the way, I take it you guys are here for answers, but if you want to be a part of our group that gets tracked and might even post a testimonial, whether you lose 10 pounds or 35 pounds like I did, we'd like to hear about it. There are 3 pillars to the Athos Diet. Okay, get ready for them. It's in the table. The first is intermittent fasting. And we want you to eat no more than 8 hours a day, but see if you can ramp up to no more than 4 hours a day. Okay, this is your eating window, as we refer to it, your eating window. We want you to consume all your calories in that period of time. When you do that, or when any mammal does that, believe it or not, they live 30% longer. Can you imagine? What's the average life expectancy in the United States? 75? Okay, so people who intermittent fast in this pattern live 30% longer, or mammals of all kinds. It's been reproduced. Second is when you're eating your food, we want you to avoid artificial sweeteners and sugars like high fructose corn syrup. But most importantly, we want you to hit a certain protein goal. And this is the next pillar, which is a high protein diet, which we recommend be from a plant source for those 48 days, okay? It's a 48-day fast. And we want you to hit at least 100 grams of protein from a plant-based source. And so you got to hit it during those 48 hours, okay? 4 to 8 hours, 4 to 8 hours. The other thing is we don't want you eating more than 130 grams of carbohydrate of any type. And the reason for this is that while you're sleeping, I want you to burn through that 130 grams. And when you wake up in the morning, you're going to be in a state of ketosis, which, believe it or not, for the arguably millions of years we've been around as a human beings, we've probably been more used to being in a state of ketosis as we look for food than we are in a normal state of burning sugar. So we want you to limit your carbohydrate consumption to 130 grams a day. Finally, we want you to walk. And I think this is a relief. I'm not asking you to CrossFit. I'm not asking you to power lift. Those 48 days is a completely different emphasis. You do not need to participate in marathon runs. All I want you to do is the ancient proven practice of walking. It turns out to be the best form of exercise universally from all the studies across decades of research. And between these 3 pillars, I think in that 48 days, you really are going to transform. And there's some really great sections in that book about the philosophy of that, how fasting is probably more in synchrony of what we're used to as a species than the snacking culture that we have now. And I think you're going to reap the benefits of it with clarity of mind, more time to think about life, less time of cleaning and prepping food. It's going to make a huge difference. So with that said, it's just sort of finishing up our time. I hope it was short and sweet, but I wanted to ask the group if there were any burning questions that needed to be clarified so that they could do their best for these next 48 days. Is there anything that really resonated with them that they wanted a little bit more instruction on? Otherwise, we'll send you on your way till the next meeting.
Yeah, Pete, it's Peter here. I just want to say, first of all, congratulations on the book to you and MB. I just got it yesterday, so I haven't had a chance to read it fully. Just a couple paragraphs. But my question is, we're always hearing about don't eat before you go to sleep, and I'm somebody that personally, at least I think I have trouble falling asleep on an empty stomach. It's not so much eating in the morning that's a problem. So does it matter what time you start the window at night? Like, can I eat my last meal at 10 p.m. or is there some guidance around that you guys have?
This is what I would say. One is that there's probably a volume phenomenon that is signaling to your brain that you need something in your stomach before you go to sleep. So you can do carbonated water. You can do some type of drink that's 0 calorie that kind of give you that mechanical feeling that your stomach has something in it. However, from an intermittent fasting perspective, just as a purist, it doesn't really matter when that 4-hour window is, okay? It really doesn't. However, as a doctor who's working in the emergency room overnight, when you start getting reflux from all that stuff that's in your stomach going into the back of your mouth and you think it's a heart attack, I'm going to see you in the emergency department and getting blood work from you saying, hey, it's probably just the fried food that you had before you went to sleep. So I'll just say this. You are welcome to pick whatever 4-hour window you want. But, as a doctor who sees a lot of people with reflux and sleeping flat after eating all your calories, it might be difficult. So I would say is reach for a non-calorie drink before you go to sleep. MB, do you have anything to add?
I think that's a great answer. I think you said it all.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Pete, for that question. I really appreciate it. Anyone else?
Yeah, Pete,
I got a question.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Sorry.
Pam, yes.
Where is the book available?
Oh, yes. So everything's digital these days, but there's a print on demand option. So if you go to the website, the Athos Diet, TheAthosDiet, the Athos Diet, you can click on that and there is a link to go to Kindle. That's who we're using for all these things. You can look at it digitally, and there's also a button to hit for print on demand, and they'll send it to you within like 2 days. In fact, I've been told that it's a nice book. People actually have had it in their hands before I have, so it looks really good. It looks really good. Thanks for asking.
hey, Glenn.
It is a nice book. I also got it in 2 days from Amazon, and I haven't read it yet. But thank you, MB and Doctor, for going through this. And my one question is, what vegan protein do you recommend that is also low carb?
MB, you want to speak to this point? I have my shakes, my pea protein shakes, which I'll speak to the world about, but I know you're the expert.
So I think while Dr. Pete is definitely more into the vegan protein supplementation, there are a lot of recipes in the book for some high protein, low carbohydrate things. All the recipes are gluten-free, grain-free, and then of course dairy and meat-free. So I guess in thinking of like a really like limited baseline for getting protein and healthy fats and not a lot of carbs, we included kind of those extra parameters, and then people can like build more on them. I'll say some of my favorite things that I included in some of those recipes are nutritional yeast, edamame, particularly there's a pasta made out of edamame flour that's like really good. That's like 25 grams of protein and not very many carbs. Let's see. Also, once you start adding up good servings of vegetables, you'd be surprised, like those what looks like a little bit of protein in, say, spinach and portobello mushrooms and kohlrabi and other things. Those do eventually add up to, say, like 15 to 20 grams in a meal. So then supplementing wouldn't necessarily be too necessary. So also, I know we both run into some like favorite vegan high protein products. Like if I'm looking for something really light and high fiber that is low in carbs, I really like the high protein cereal Catalina Crunch. It's vegan. It'll make you feel pretty good. So
Yeah.
those are some tips.
No, that's great. And you know, like I said, I think for those 48 days, it's a reasonable thing to just go the distance with finding those new sources. There's whole networks of Instagrams and online blogs of really high protein vegan stuff. And in fact, it's been really exciting as we kind of link into those networks. We're starting to realize that, you know, the vegetarians, the vegans, the pescatarians, it almost sounds religious, but you know, they're all reaching for the same foods. And so, yeah, it's been exciting kind of getting their advice as well in terms of recipes that make this 48 days more nutritious, and you can still meet your goals. Great. Okay. Any last burning questions? Otherwise, I so appreciate you staying on the call extra. I want to make sure that we make good use of your time. I'd like to remind you, you can always go to the website, the Athos Diet, and follow our blog where you get updates about different speaking events. I'm actually very excited to say that next week I'm going to be interviewed by a nutritionist out of the United Kingdom, James Ellis, and he's going to be speaking to me about the Athos Diet. He's actually traveled there, and so he wanted to connect on a common experience and speak how this diet might help his clients and patients. So with that said, thanks so much to everyone, and to MB Gayle for her work tonight. Thanks again for all of your attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thanks
All right.
again.
I'll be around if anybody wants to just like hang out, but yeah. I have an apple cider vinegar, 0-calorie, delicious drink, and like 20 minutes to hang out. So just throwing it out there.
No, that's great. MB, I'll let you finish it off here. Thanks so much, MB, for putting this together. I really appreciate
All
it.
right. Thank you.
Okay. Take care, everyone. Good night.
It's
He
good
seems
to
like
see.
a nice guy.
Yeah. I'm going to stop this recording.